So, Charles, good morning, Sir Charles.
All right, everybody. Good morning to you once again as we enter inside this brand new hour, a new segment in between here of Exploring Buddhist Concepts. Of course, Kasi Senghor joins us in between here. Kasi, good morning to you. Sorry,
Good, good,
sorry.
good morning. Good morning, Sir Charles. You're right, a laugh because I don't know why with this new setup we have here. I look for it. I say, all right, I'll keep it. Don't mind the like a disappear. You know, you have disappearing messages.
Probably it must have disappeared.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know where to put it because it's on my laptop. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'll try and
I will show you how to save it on your laptop where you will have it all the time. Don't worry.
right. Beautiful. Thanks for that. All right. So officially, good morning again to all listeners at home and abroad, and it is again a pleasure to be here because in the midst of all the problems, situations, confusions, backs and forths, and you know the works. You know, we have been listening to the radio. I'm a radio person, and maybe a lot of you are too, or if not, you're just tuning into this in particular. Happy to have you. And you know, when the last time I spoke on this network, which would have been on was it yes? No, it wasn't yesterday. Monday, I think. You know, we had this situation where people were advocating that they, that other people be blown off of trees if they come on a tree to steal breadfruit, and we got a back and forth about that. There was some support for that and that kind of thing. And with all that, now we have authorities once again going towards prayer. And we had a lot of conversation about prayer. This morning I was fortunate that when I tuned in, I tuned in late this morning, about 20 to 8, but I was still find that I was fortunate to hear about prayer. I think it was from the Vicar General of the Anglican Diocese. So Charles will correct me if I'm incorrect, but
No, you're right. You're right.
yeah, you're right. And he was, he and Richard were, and Wendell were having a very interesting conversation. And, I thought to myself, I said, well, I wonder how, if there's still an interfaith organization, because I would like to be on it. I feel I have a good contribution to make. Well, I'm going to say I would like to be on it. I'll talk to the Buddhist folk executive and let them know what I feel and what I propose. But if the Vicar General is interfaith with Baha'i, Orisha, Roman Catholic, Jehovah, anybody who might be on it, I would like to have a Buddhist representative there because it's so very important, I find, to be able to discuss as a nation because we're so varied, in all aspects, including religion and living side by side. An interfaith organization is also vital to my way of thinking. And not the, I don't, well, I mean, I don't know if I'll upset the apple cart, but not a kind of sit back and relax and watch and wait, and you're kind of afraid to say this and afraid to say that. Because here we are on an island, you know what I mean, and everybody touching everybody every day, you know. So, you know, I want to be able to touch, reach out and touch too. You know, I would like to have Buddha's words spread within the organization and within the society, because I think that they are valuable words and they can help us all, you know. And Sir Charles did ask the very obvious, pertinent, relevant question. Well, if we don't arm ourselves, then what we gonna do? You know what I mean? You know, we gotta protect ourselves somehow or the other. You know what I mean? And some people believe, well, the gun is the answer. Some people believe prayer is the answer. Some people believe none of the two. They have other ideas, and which I don't want to enumerate. They will have to express it themselves, but the other people have different ideas towards that. So having experienced all that I just described, having listened to the Vicar General this morning, and it was very good interview done by Richard and Wendell and so on, Sir Charles. So, it occurred to me, well, because I had not fully prepared for this for today's session. Then I say, well, there are prayers also in Buddhism, and even though I looked up some literature, a few books, I looked up the index for the word prayer, and I never found it. I never saw the word prayer in the index, so that I could go and look in the contents in the text to see what does Buddhism say about prayer, or are there any prayers then? But there are, and most of the time, my interpretation of when we say may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, for instance, to me that's a prayer, But that is under the heading of what we call the all beings of happiness, of what we call immeasurable. Then it's among the four immeasurables, so it is never couched in our language as a prayer. But to me, that's what we are doing. May you be filled. The song you hear at the end of this. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be happy, and so on. To me, that is a prayer, but it's never couched or referred to as a prayer. So, when I try to find prayer in context and in text, I didn't find the word prayer. But then there is there is something called the Buddha's words on loving kindness, and we have used that prayer, I'm calling it now, in our retreats on several occasions. And we, various people have copies of it, and, we have gone through it, because that's what we do with text, especially, of course, from the Buddha. We have to go through it and see its practicality. We have to, like, if we want to use the word, test it out. We have to see if it works for us, And as I say, works for us. There's no, it's common sense that if you're going to be praying and asking for something in particular. There's a lot of work to be done, you know. Unless you expect that you could just pray and rock back and things are going to come to you. Like you have a glass of water in front of you and you're praying that you're thirsty and you are praying that your thirst will be quenched. And then you expect the glass of water to come to you. It doesn't work like that. You have to pick up the glass, put it in your mouth, and pour it in and swallow and so on. It takes work. So similarly with prayer, when we are calling for days of prayer and and all that sort of thing, it should be infused with days of work regarding the prayer, whatever the prayer is. Not just days of work arbitrarily that you pray one side and then you go to work at one side and you go on your line one side and everything on a side and there's nothing that there's no whole then that will create a whole society. One of our young men, Dean and or both of them, Dean and Junior and so on, always referring to that sort of thing. They want to see a united society, and they have proposals, and they do a lot of work as far as from what I've been hearing from them. They do a lot of work in trying to make the society a better place, trying to bring unity in the situations in which they are in, trying to educate folk along the way. And I am in total praise for what I hear coming from them. But as I say, I don't know what their opinion about prayers and so on. I think I've heard Hotep speak about it over time, about the prayer thing, and other people who are vehemently against the idea of prayer because, well, for instance, one man this morning talking about, how long he pray and nothing happening and that kind of thing. Like the same glass of water situation. I don't know what he expects us to see happening. There has to be some work and so on. So when Sir Charles and others like him, like Sir Charles, say, well, what do you do? If you don't get yourself a firearm and a license one at that, what will you do when the person comes into your house? And, while contemplating that question after it was asked the other day, Monday, I think it was, when I contemplated that question, I remember that two persons may have answered it in this not in the sense of what do I do at the moment when a person comes, you have a firearm, you shoot it off, and you hit something. It could be a mother, one of your siblings, it could be a bandit, it could be anybody who gets hit and who might die in the process. What do you do if you're not going to do that? You know what I mean? And that's a difficult question to answer. As I said on that very day, each scenario, there are as many scenarios as there are people. So judges and magistrates and all these folk have a task on their hand because they have to judge by the circumstance in front of them, which brings to mind the idea of what I think, I do not know for sure, but just from reading, of how African societies and maybe other societies like African societies had their council of elders, who would make judgments on situations that occurred in their communities, and I don't think we're going to have that here because that's another problem again by itself. So we are stuck with the wigged judges, and this particular one is going to say this, and this one is going to appeal, and all that kind of stuff. The question again, coming back to Sir Charles, is what do we do? So, so I came across the Buddha's words on loving kindness. All right, and to me, this is a prayer, and to me, this is a good prayer, a very workable one, which we have used in our in retreats and in well, mostly in retreats because it's a pretty long prayer, and in our privacy and so on. You wouldn't, you'd hardly use it in a meditation session. So I'm going to read it and let's see where it takes us, and hopefully if there are people who want to call about it or call about anything that I've said, I would certainly invite you to do that so we can discuss. And if there are people who know about the interfaith thing and want to are able to guide me and let me know, well, where's the interfaith office or who are the people or whatever it is, I am willing to be among them. Right, so here we go. The Buddha's words on loving kindness. Now, the loving kindness itself is what we call an immeasurable. In that there are no boundaries to loving kindness according to Buddhism. It's not loving kindness for this group and not for that group. For this person and not for that person. In preference for these kinds of people over other kinds of people. Okay? That is why it's called an immeasurable. Right? No discrimination whatsoever. And better than best. It's coming from the prayer. I'm going to keep calling it that throughout now. The prayer is coming from the Buddha. So, let's hear what he espouses in the prayer. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness. Well, already calling for a skill already. Something that one has to be able to do, a skill in goodness. Got to be practicing that at least to some extent. And who knows the path of peace? Well, there you go again. You have to be on that trend, knowing the path to peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways. Full stop. So let's go over that again. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness, who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways. Right, so that's a big ask being put forward there. When I read unburdened or when you hear and burdened with duties. You know what I mean? Is this a prayer designed for just for monks who might be sitting down whole day or in a cave or that kind of thing? What about the layman, the family man who has duties, the man going to work then? Isn't this something is it something that we as lay people can also do? So we go forward to see, well, what can we do as lay people with duties, and if it will work for us? So peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Again, you're calling for some high ideals here. You're calling for some really high ideals here. But to the lay person who's reading and who does not have, well, like myself, for instance, is not really practicing at that highest level, high ideal, almost like a perfect kind of person, almost as though we are skilled in goodness, as the very first line says in the prayer, as though we are already saints then, where do we go? What do we use then to do the things that will help us, that will protect us, that will protect our families, that will help and protect everybody with whom we meet? Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. So again, the word may, and therefore, to my mind, a prayer, you're asking that may all beings be at ease. Now note carefully that in this prayer, this is not a prayer to the Buddha or to any entity outside of ourselves. This is a prayer for us to live. We ourselves are training, practicing how to live out this kind of prayer, knowing full well that we are going to fall many times, and that as our poster friends will let us know, and other people will let us know, so, and what do you call it, radio things on the radio and so on. That is not how many times you fall, but how many times you get up. People use that phrase, that sentence. People project that, not how many times you fall. So here it is that we know that. So therefore, all of this that we are talking about here is what we call training. You see, this is not, if you don't do this, you'll go to a certain place. And if you do this, you will go to another place. Our approach as Buddhists, or in Buddhism, we are quite aware that we are going to fall. We are quite aware that circumstances, as we know them, are going to occur, that will bring us down, that will overwhelm us, that will pull wool over our eyes, with all the scams and what have you taken place, the greed. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, we know the poisons, we know the things that make us suffer. We know them, and we have been talking about them up to recently this morning before this program. The greed for more money, the fact that we have plenty, and people at BMW pulling up and going to invest for more is exactly what the Buddha spoke about, thousands of years ago. Desire, greed, that the human realm, he has pointed out on many occasions, is the desire realm, is also known as the desire realm. And what is the desire for? More. Mm. So whether it's the old person who is up late at night, who the marketing people, the scammers, etc., are aware of, whether it's a young person, the stylish person who wants to be in the latest or what have you, whether it's a naive person, like myself, who thinks that they have a bargain, they have to get one of those before we run out or what have you. Whoever we might be, we are going to fall prey at some time or the other. And therefore, our alertness is called for work. So while we are praying, as we are in this prayer here, alertness, mindfulness is what is called for also. So that we don't go blindly into things. You know what I mean? You might still fall, There are people who have studied us to such an extent that they are ahead on the things that we can use to block them off then. They might be ahead and still winning the game of scamming us. That people that good. So we have work to do there. And then of course we don't want our children growing up in situations as described here. Because we don't want them to be, thought of as fools and, just be misguided just because and, falling prey to all the ills of society. We do not want that. So hence the reason why a prayer like the one I'm going through here now is essential because it points to a way of life. It is not demanding, it is not saying you must, I think I'm repeating myself here. It is not saying you must do this or else, or you must not do this or else. It is pointing to a way to live which will help us to protect ourselves and to protect others. Let me see what time it is. Right, so we are 11:34. Right. So that is how we're going down the road here now. The last sentence I read says, "May all beings be at ease." Whatever living beings there may be, no, that wasn't the last sentence. But anyway, we'll take it from there. Whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another. To me, if I, when I say that, what often comes to mind is that if I do that, that is going to be done to me too. Let none deceive another. In other words, I'm saying that if I were to deceive you or anyone else, I feel that somehow or the other, somebody is going to deceive me too at some time. Do I want that? Well, I certainly don't. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. In other words, let us say the high and mighty, the so-called middle class, the lower class, the vagrants. Nobody in any state, don't despise anybody in any state at all, because we do not know when we may fall into that state ourselves. Because life has its ups and downs. We know all of that, We know all of that. It is a matter of living it that we're trying to make sense of. Right. May all beings be at peace. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Well, this is a big one because this is something that we can do and that we often do, thinking that nobody will know. So you simply, you're just wishing that your neighbor will feel them. You're just wishing that the parents and of children in the same school as yours will not shine then, or their children will not shine as much as yours. Because you would like yours to come first every time and test and be their own. So the question of ill will and anger and ill will could be as private as you want it to be. You could harbor anger for anything and nobody has to know. As well as it could be so obvious that there are constantly outbursts and infractions and it could lead to serious things as we know. The use of the gun, etc., etc. So Buddha is saying, let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Right? I'm going to say something here. I don't know how you all are going to take it, but this, I mean, I attend every now and again, maybe twice a year, I attend a homeopathic doctor. And the last time I attended, the doctor said, I am picking up maljo. And he went on to describe maljo as people wishing you harm. And I said, oh yeah. So when I mentioned it to my daughter, she said, well, does he have a cure for that? Or even a cure or something like that. How can you cure yourself if other people are wishing you harm and it seems to be having some effect? Is it that you have to believe in Maljo to have it upon you then? Because I remember as a child, and many people listening know about Maljo as children, parents used to do, I think, pin on something blue inside of your school uniform, or you're going out clothes or what have you. And that was protection against maljo. So as far as I'm aware, maljo was a real thing when I was a child. I tell you it now in my old age. It was something else, I mean, I kind of chuckled at it. But I did recognize well, let's just say the possibility of it. That there could be, or as a matter of fact, there are, might very well be people who wish me ill, you know. And the Buddha is asking us, let none to anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish over the entire world. We given a task here, the exercise protection over the entire world with a boundless heart. I mean, good Lord. Don't catch anything right to protect yourself, on island here. And now we want to protect the whole world with a boundless heart. Say what? All right. Spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down. In Buddhism, these are the four positions: standing, walking, seated or lying down. Free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. In other words, sustain all that you just said there. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views. The pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being free from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Right? So that is a guarantee if we are able to live according to that which brings us right back to the very first sentence that says, this should be practiced by one who is skilled in goodness. Right? And thus the prayer ends there. So it's now 11:43, and I want to leave it there. And if there are no callers, I will just use about 2 to 3 minutes in silent meditation, so that the words that we heard may sink in somehow, may have some effect, may bring about some ease, some calm, inspire us to some practicality, in general, and do us good. So if you could just simply, wherever we are, if we can sit in a nice upright posture, or if we are standing in a nice upright posture, or lying down in a nice flat, as flat as possible posture, the feet stretched out and so on. And allow the mind to join with the body. Perhaps we could use the breath. Follow follow the breath or count the breath as we are in this posture. With the in breath, knowing that we are breathing in, the out breath, knowing we are breathing out. You can count it this way: in, out, one. And we can use the one as we breathe out. As we breathe out, in, out, two, in, three, in, four, and the number simply following the breath. So let's just do that for a minute or two, so as not to have too much dead air. I would simply just use the in and out. Out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. And feel the body relaxing as we progress. Let the mind join in with the body. Let anxiety, the next thing to be done, the next job, the next duty, let that take a rest, take a side for the moment. Out, 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 out. Thank you very much, Sir Charles. I'm leaving it there.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much, Kasi.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease.